Welcome to episode 2 of the Bandwagon Fan.
I'm AJ.
I'm Alex.
And I'm Josh. This is the show where we talk all things pop culture. As our name suggests, we aren't necessarily experts on the topics we discuss, so we want to hear from you, our listeners. Tell us what kind of things you're watching, playing, or reading. Tell us what we should explore next. And this isn't limited to hardcore fans. We also welcome the casuals, newbies as well. So let's nerd out together and get started by checking out some of the latest news in pop culture. First thing I have on here, guys, is Halo. Have either of you played it?
Oh man, I've been playing it like crazy.
I've played like Halo in general, or do you mean the new Halo?
The new one. It's just multiplayer right now.
Unfortunately, I do not own an Xbox, but I want to play it.
True story. You actually don't even need an Xbox to play it. You can actually play over xCloud.
Microsoft, so you can play on PC.
Yeah. So Microsoft, if you want to sponsor this podcast, I will be an ambassador. No problem.
I mean, not that we need their sponsorship, but you know, if they're feeling up to it, right, guys?
Don't say that. We definitely need their sponsorship.
Please give us your money. Please give us your money.
We'll say anything on this podcast.
Almost
anything.
We'll see.
But yeah, I played it a little bit. I played a couple matches. It was cool.
I've been grinding through the big challenge that I think a lot of the community is having is that it's using this crazy monetization process for the skins. When the game came out prior to launch, they had said that they weren't going to overly monetize and that everything would be unlockable. But then everyone played and they're like, this is insane. You have to play so many games just to get very few items, and you have to pay a lot of money. And, you know, when I was a kid, I think it wouldn't have bugged me that much. That's all I did when I was 16, 17 years old, play video games. But now I'm just like, I'm not going to pay $20 to wear a skin. Like, that's stupid. Like,
yeah, that's ridiculous, especially when they used to come with multiplayer. You used to just buy like the map pack and give you like 20 maps.
And you got to play the game. I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's probably the most polished Halo game I've ever played, and I've played every single Halo game. However, there are some things that can definitely be fixed. I think it'll be fixed down the road. So
it was delayed a year at launch too, right?
Yeah, that's the craziest thing about it. This game was supposed to be out. It was supposed to come out last year, and they delayed it. I just think it's crazy that they released the game in the state that it's in, and then everyone's like, "Oh, we don't really like this," and they're like, "Oh, we're sorry, I guess." I just find that so bizarre. That's really crazy.
That's really that is bizarre to me. The other speaking of bizarre thing I saw this week that I thought was kind of crazy is, have either of you seen Birds of Prey?
Yes.
That's the Harley Quinn movie?
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Which I think the movie is badass. I know it came out about a year ago at this point.
Yeah.
Which I think it went a little under the radar because it launched like while everyone was understandably not going to theaters / go to theaters.
I think that was part of it. I think the other part of it was that Warner Brothers has kind of soured the community that would like to watch these movies a little bit with Suicide Squad, and then the Batman movies the Batman movie that never came, and then they kind of just changed it, and the Justice League movie. Like I think Warner Brothers has kind of soured people to it. So when Birds of Prey was announced, I don't think the same hype was there, because Birds of Prey. Is that a comic book, guys? You guys help me out. Is that a comic book series?
Yeah, it's like a group from the comics. Okay. I don't know who's totally like all the members that are in it. I think at times it's been like Black Canary, Huntress, Barbara Gordon. Which
I think they were all in the movie. I think
in some fashion,
Lady Blackhawk, Oracle, says Hawk and Dove. Yeah, so it's. I think arguably it was like the best DC movie to come out in the past few years. Like I put it off for like months because I hated Suicide Squad, but like this movie was just like fun.
Which Suicide Squad?
The initial one from 2016.
Okay.
I have to recorrect on that. But this movie I thought was just fun, like over the top, kind of violent, but like in a fun way.
Yeah.
And HBO just censored it, and they claimed that it was accidental. They re-uploaded the TV 14 version, so there's like swear words edited out. There's like T-shirts and stuff blurred. If any fans know any other specific parts of it, like you can definitely let us know, like in the comments. But this is like the thing that kind of, I guess, frustrates me about some streaming platforms is like you're paying monthly to like quote unquote own these films, and then you're not even getting the version that you want. Like HBO could put it up, but if they don't, then it's like you're forced to watch this TV version of a movie that was designed to be rated R.
Yeah, I know that was a big issue when Disney bought Fox. They bought a bunch of their IPs, and they censored some episodes of The Simpsons. I believe I believe that there are episodes that I don't remember if they took them off or they just censored them. Like they physically went to go censor them. But I know that was like a real pain point for a lot of people.
Yeah,
I can understand.
It says episodes.
Were they removed?
15 episodes were censored.
Yeah. Okay. So censored. So they probably just edited them.
One episode was banned. Season 8, episode 18, Homer versus the 18th Amendment.
Wait, what? What?
I've never seen it.
Okay. I've never seen it.
I'm not really a Simpsons guy, so I don't know. That's very interesting.
Simpsons is hit or miss for me. But
I can read the description. It says in the episode, Springfield enacts prohibition after a raucous St. Patrick's Day celebration to supply Moe's Speakeasy. Homer becomes a bootlegger. And then I guess that's. I guess Homer becomes a bootlegger.
Why was it banned?
We'd have to watch it. We'd have to watch it to find out.
I want to look this up. If anyone listening knows what the episode is about and like why it would be banned, please let us know, because I'm curious.
This reminds me a lot of. Oh, what were you gonna say?
I was just saying it's season 8, episode 18.
This reminds me a lot of when the Boondocks, if you guys remember that show.
Yeah, I love that show.
They got censored a lot, and I believe that's what led the original showrunner to leave the show. They were just censored a lot, and it's just unfortunate that these big corporations, they give carte blanche to these creative, people, writers, producers, whatever. Then there's some backlash, and then they turn around and they say, okay, well, we can't support this anymore. I just don't think that's fair. To those people, I don't think it's fair to the fans that want to enjoy that. For Birds of Prey, I just think that's kind of silly. I would really love to know if they just thought no one would care.
Do they intend to put the original version back on? Do you know, Alex?
There has been no there's been no updates. Like as of 2 hours ago, it says Birds of Prey gets censored on HBO. They admitted that it was by a mistake, but they haven't, at least according to now, have not given an update on whether or not they're actually going to replace it. So it's like we get it was a mistake, but like if you don't change it, then it's like I have a feeling maybe it wasn't a mistake.
Yeah,
maybe it's like some way to get people interested in the movie again.
Are we really supposed to believe this multi-billion-dollar company is saying whoops?
Look at the whole thing with Spider-Man last week. We talked about the Brazil trailer.
But even then, I don't know if that's really, is that really a mistake, or is that something that is that a way to garner? Maybe they want
little breadcrumbs.
Yeah, maybe they want people to watch Birds of Prey. You know what I'm saying?
They should. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it.
But watch the unedited version.
Right.
Watch the real version.
Yeah. So go buy a DVD, which is actually going to make HBO more money. I guess you have to own the original copy.
So I think someone wanted to say something about since we're talking about DC Comics, what's the Ayer cut? Are we having another Snyder cut situation?
Yeah. So there are talks. The Jared Leto was talking about.
No.
He was promoting House of Gucci, and Suicide Squad obviously came up because that's something he just loves to talk about. And there are hints that there might be a director's cut of that. What's the director's name? Something Ayer, right?
The director for Suicide Squad?
Yeah, of the original one.
Of the OG one, right? Like the
I don't know. David Ayer.
David
Ayer. Talking about?
Right. So then he tweeted, I believe it was him, saying that between him and Jared Leto, they're saying that's what streaming services are for, to release director's cuts.
Boo.
I think they're trying to follow after Zack Snyder. And you know what? If we can get a better movie out of it, I'm all for it.
No.
And
you know what he's trying to do? David Ayer is trying to get his son in his time in the sun, just like Zack Snyder did. That vindication. That's what he wants. That's what
it's done. It needs to die.
Go for it.
No way. There's no amount of cut that can make that movie better.
I refuse to watch it. I dislike Zack Snyder. I don't like any of
his. Which one? You refuse to watch which one? Justice League? The Justice League movie?
Version of
his cut was
much better. Yeah, his cut was much better. I have to give him credit. I don't enjoy Zack Snyder as a director too much. However, I can see what he wanted to do with the Justice League movie. I can appreciate what he was trying to do. It was 4 hours of a movie, and I'm like, this is a long movie. Maybe this should have been broken up into 2 movies somehow.
Right.
However, I do have to give him credit to say his vision was at least coherent, and it made sense, much more sense than the
Justice League,
the Josh Whedon version.
Justice League.
It was just much more coherent. It was a much better story that it told. And I think the most frustrating part, and if anyone has seen the Zack Snyder cut can agree, is in the original Josh Whedon version, it felt like they cut so much from Cyborg's character.
Oh, dude, and that actor is he's not happy about that.
But he did a great job in the Zack Snyder cut, and it was just like, what happened? What did the Warner Brothers execs see that made them say, nah?
Yeah. He was like the backbone of the recut version.
Yeah,
Alex, you should watch it. It's highly
all right. As a Zack Snyder critic, I will watch it. I just don't like how he lazily he desaturates like all of his worlds to like make them look dark, and I'm like,
that's all there.
Make the characters dark. It doesn't need to look physically dark.
Yeah, don't worry. That's all there. It's still a Zack Snyder movie, so don't think that you're about to watch like Stanley Kubrick's make of the Justice League. Like, it's still a Zack Snyder's movie. It's just, I think it, in the context of the other movies, it makes sense. You know what I mean?
I'll give it a chance one of these days.
But wait, there's more. Zack Snyder put out a tweet. I don't know if you guys saw this.
Oh no!
Of his Thanksgiving turkey.
Okay.
And eagle-eyed fans notice in the background there is a large copy of Final Crisis, which is a DC
story.
Is that?
What is Final Crisis?
It's like a multiverse type of thing, like what they're trying to do in Marvel with the whole Doctor Strange.
Is that the thing Spider-Man. Is that the thing that's like kind of hinted in the Justice League movie a little bit?
Kind of, a little bit.
Yeah.
It says it's a crossover storyline from 2008.
Okay.
Right. So there's speculation that he might be involved in a future project with that, which can be very interesting.
Yeah. I just think Warner Brothers went the wrong way with how they were trying to build their universe. They didn't want to take the Disney approach and build it. And to to Warner Brothers' defense, technically Disney never did really build it, right? They acquired the Marvel IP and then the studios with those movies already made, and just decided to like create a universe around movies that were already made. And so Warner Brothers, I think they knew that they had a maybe stronger IP or stronger process to do something like that. And they try to just go all in without really mapping out a long-term plan. I think that's what's hurt them the most.
100%.
Yeah. It's risky. It didn't work, but I kind of see what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
Speaking of risky,
ooh.
The most bizarre current event I've seen this week is there's a YouTuber who goes by Point Crow. Mm-hmm. He has offered fans of The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild $10,000 to anyone who can create a multiplayer mod for it. So if you could create a multiplayer mod for Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, you could possibly get $10,000 from Point Crow. Will Nintendo stop it? Most likely, but
most likely,
yeah, worth the risk.
So I guess I would love to hear his understanding for how he would play it, because the only way he could get the mod to work is either on a cracked Switch or cracked Nintendo Switch, or B, an emulator. So I'm sure Nintendo's going to be really invested in whoever makes this mod and kind of be like, hey, man, how did you get this to work? Because this isn't really beyond the licensing thing. Like using an emulator to play it. That's weird.
Well, you can use your $10,000 with your litigation against Nintendo.
I should pay for like 1 day of
I should pay for a little
fees. bit. That's pretty funny. Anything else, guys? Anything Disney related?
Book of Boba Fett. They put a new teaser. I watched it. It's like 20 seconds long. I didn't notice anything too different that stood out to me, at least. I don't know if you guys have seen the other teasers they've put out for that.
Yeah, no. I saw the one before. What are your thoughts on the Book of Boba?
I'm excited for it. I mean, like any Star Wars fan, he's always been something that was pretty cool, but overlooked because of what happens to him in the films. And then there was the whole extended universe stuff, the books and comic books and whatnot that were really cool. So it's cool to see him.
Is that stuff canon?
It was uncanonized, but it looks like they're starting to draw from that stuff again. So I'm just curious to see where Disney decides to take this. Go.
Yeah. I love Boba Fett. I just never really thought I feel like I never needed to know more about him. I kind of always liked, at least in the original Star Wars, like the mystery of like not knowing all of his backstory, which I understand they've done at this point. So I'm curious. I feel like I don't have very high expectations for it.
I'm coming in with a hot take, guys.
Oh, let's go.
I've never been super impressed with Boba Fett as a character.
Oh,
there are a lot of people who would agree with you on that.
Yeah,
that's all right.
I think that what made the lore of Boba Fett intriguing was that he seemed to be this really intense character that we didn't know anything about, but we never learned anything about him. And because of how he's, I guess, treated or handled in the original trilogy, that there really wasn't space to use his character outside the original trilogy. So there really isn't much we know about him. I mean, Josh says that there are books and comics, I'm sure, that maybe expand on the lore, but I haven't engaged in that stuff. And because it's not canon, it's no longer real or true. So I just kind of find his character just one of the many nameless, faceless Star Wars characters. I was never been really engaged in his backstory, I guess you could say.
Well, here's a chance to turn it around.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But as a fan, I'm still not excited. So at least we have.
We got all our bases.
There.
We got all our bases.
Speaking of Disney, though, going over to the Marvel side, I'll be digging into this in a second, the new Hawkeye series. But going into the background of that, there's a lot of speculation that this Hawkeye series is going to jumpstart the Young Avengers in the MCU. And I don't know, are you familiar with the Young Avengers?
A little bit. I mean, they're little Avengers. Is it like the baby Flintstone, the baby Looney Tunes? Is that okay?
Let me go into some light spoilers. If you're listening and you haven't read the comics of Young Avengers and you want to, just skip ahead like a minute. So you have Iron Lad, who is like Iron Man, and it turns out he is a version of Kang the Conqueror.
Oh.
Then there's Hulkling, who is not related to the Hulk whatsoever. He's actually half Kree, half Skrull. I believe he's either gay or bisexual, because I think him and Wiccan, who is another character, are in a relationship together. Because there's Wiccan and Speed, who are the sons of Scarlet Witch, which we did see
which we have seen. We have seen them. Okay, right. This is interesting.
Then there's also Patriot, who is the grandson of Isaiah Bradley, who we saw in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
We did?
Isaiah Bradley, he was the original OG Captain America.
Is it that kid that was like man, I'm trying to remember. Is it the kid that wouldn't let them see the grandfather?
I think it's him. And if not him, like that's the grandfather is Isaiah Bradley. I'm assuming that kid is going to be Patriot. Maybe.
Interesting. That would be cool.
That's
also
a cool little callback. Stature, who is the daughter of Scott Lang, Ant-Man. And then
obviously we have seen, right?
Right, we have seen her.
Yeah, we have seen her. I believe
a different actress will be playing her in the future Ant-Man and Wasp movie.
Well, help me remember when the after the blip, isn't she older?
Right.
So don't they already have a different actress for her?
They do.
Or you
I
don't
don't know
know?
if she'll be
Okay.
reprising the role or if they're going to take it somewhere else.
Yeah, Ant-Man's another film I'm not excited to see anymore. Ever since Edgar Wright stopped directing them, I haven't enjoyed Ant-Man.
I'm gonna inject, if you don't mind, Josh, because I think something that is interesting. Josh brought up that Hawkling is part Kree and part Skrull, right?
Yes.
And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't one of the things that the Kree can do, or it's either the Kree or the Skrull? Can't they mimic powers? Isn't that what gives Hawkling his powers?
Right.
Because he's mimicking.
They can like shapeshift.
But can't they like also I guess copy powers? I believe that was a thing that I cannot remember the line.
But there's the Super Skrull from Fantastic Four.
That's what I was trying.
I don't know if he copied or just had their powers.
Okay.
But I'm not sure yet if that's like a species wide thing or not.
Okay.
And then the last main person from that obviously is Kate Bishop, Hawkeye. There's also been some other characters who we might be able to see. America Chavez, who I think is going to be in the new Doctor Strange movie. Really? She's also a member of the Young Avengers at some point or another.
I also love Kate Bishop, so I'm excited to see more on her.
What about Miss Marvel? Is she a Young Avenger?
I am not sure, actually. I'm not a big Marvel comics reader. I'm more into like the MCU.
Yeah.
So if anyone listening knows the answer to that, please let us know. This is definitely a topic I'm learning about as I go.
I believe. Oh, she's in Champions, Marvel Champions. So like I haven't read it yet, but I believe that correlates.
Right, and the other thing is Young Avengers. Their inception might have been before that character was created, because they came around during the Avengers Disassembled. I don't know if you guys have read that.
No, sir.
It did inspire WandaVision a little bit. What happens in that is Scarlet Witch kind of goes a little crazy, and it's related to her kids that they don't actually exist, but she thinks they do. And so bad stuff happens. Again, a little bit of a spoiler. This comic's been out for a long time, though. Vision, Hawkeye, and Ant-Man all end up dying during this, along with a few other people.
Let me throw another spoiler, because Alex said that he wasn't excited for the Ant-Man movies, but I think one of the reasons why you should is, who is the OG Ant-Man? Josh, what's his name?
Hank Pym.
Hank Pym. Apparently, if I'm not mistaken, in the Secret Invasion comics, isn't Hank Pym determined to be a Skrull?
I actually have not read Secret Invasion, so I'm not sure.
Okay, so that's one of the reasons that may be one of the things that is, if not hinted, may be thrown out there, because I am pretty sure Hank Pym. Spoiler, if in case they actually do that, but I mean, whatever. Like Josh said, these comics have been out forever. But yeah, Hank Pym is a Skrull.
What?
And so yes, so and it kind of explains his intellect and his whatever. But
that would be interesting if they go that route.
Maybe I can give it a chance. But let me recorrect. I actually realized Edgar Wright didn't direct the first one. He wrote the story. So that's the difference between. It's been the same director, Peyton Reed.
Edgar Wright wrote or directed Baby Driver, right?
Yeah, and Scott Pilgrim versus the World. A lot of great films.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good director.
Going back to Avengers Disassembled, what ends up happening though at the end of that is the Marvel universe, like the Avengers, the X-Men, they're trying to decide what to do with Scarlet Witch, because she's responsible for all these people dying and all this crazy stuff happening. And so they're kind of split on, do we like try to protect her and help her, or do we kill her? And that it's really interesting to see like who wants to do what in that. And then eventually Scarlet Witch rewrites reality to where she gets rid of all the mutants in the world. So I'm curious to see
maybe the inverse is gonna happen with this one then.
Right. And I'm wondering if they'll draw some of this, and we'll see that with Doctor Strange or whatnot.
Because she already created one mutant, right? Spectrum?
I'm not sure, actually.
Remember in the show, Spectrum, or is it, I believe that's her name. If anyone can correct me, that'd be great. But Spectrum I think it's Monica Rambeau. I think that's her name.
Monica Rambeau, yeah.
Yeah, when she steps through the force field thing, that's how she gets her powers. So technically, can't you say that she already made the first mutant?
It's possible, yeah.
Yeah.
And Monica Rambeau in the comics at one point takes up the moniker of Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel, yeah.
Because they do share that connection anyways.
Yeah.
But the only person we haven't seen a strong connection to from the Young Avengers is Hulkling, other than the whole Korean Skrull things that we've seen.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen anything too strong to hint at the character being into the MCU. But going from there, I want to talk about the Hawkeye Disney Plus show. And there will be some light spoilers. I don't know if you guys have watched it yet.
I haven't, but I'm actually that's one of the few Disney Plus shows I'm kind of excited to check out.
Okay.
Can you guys explain to me the appeal behind Hawkeye as a character and Kate Bishop?
I think it's very much the everyman average Joe, like, no powers, I can still be a hero type of thing.
It's like a Walmart version of Batman.
You know what? Yeah.
Yeah, I've never really honestly read that much of Hawkeye itself, but like Kate Bishop, I feel like has some potential to be an interesting character. I feel like she's just kind of I like that she really just acts like a normal teenager and happens to be able to like fight and stuff, but she isn't like set up with like a bunch of at least so what I know, like she doesn't seem to have like a really crazy like dark backstory or anything. It's just kind of like lighthearted and fun
just like
for
a
me.
kid, just a kid trying to do their part in saving the world.
Yeah, and I don't know. I've only like read a very small amount of her stuff, but I think it's nice to just like have something that isn't so dark to read every now and then.
Okay, all right, that's fair.
And I'll actually get into a little bit more about how I haven't really read any Hawkeye or Kate Bishop, but
yeah,
watching the show and digging into it a little bit, I'm actually very interested in reading a specific run that was actually, it came out in 2012, written by Matt Fraction and art by David Aja.
Mm-hmm.
And Verno over at the Cerebros did a podcast episode on this, so I listened to that. So shout out to him for a lot of really good info and a in-depth look at the character. There is a lot of controversy with this because if you look at the promotional work, there's lots of like shades of purple and like with the arrows and stuff. It's very reminiscent of Aha's work, and he's not being compensated for it, which a lot of people are very upset about. But then the question is, like, was this ever in his contract? Where do we go from here? Because that happens to a lot of creators where
it could be like a work for hire. Where I know that happens in music a lot, where you just basically they might have been paid like a lump sum up front, and then like you're not allowed to do anything with the material or like have any, like no matter what happens to it later, like you're not compensated. It really all depends on like the type of contract they would have signed, unfortunately.
And that's the big question to me, is like, what was this contract like, and like what's the solution? Should they hire him on as a consultant in the future? Should Marvel like do contracts now with the MCU where artists and writers will get a certain percentage of their property that they worked on being used? I mean, I don't have a solution for this. If anyone listening does, let us know.
I don't know what Disney would even. I don't think Disney would even care, to be honest with you.
They probably don't, which is unfortunate.
I think at the end of the day, Disney's like, well, this is our property and we can do what we want with it.
Yeah, until there's a viral backlash.
Right. We ostensibly bought your work when we acquired Marvel. So, hey, man.
And I think that's what the situation is right now. But there is a pretty strong reaction online, especially on Twitter. So I'm curious to see if it'll get loud enough where Disney has to pay attention to it. But I'll touch a little bit more on that run further in.
Okay.
For now, I want to talk about the first two episodes. They released 2, which is a interesting move that we're not either going to get one episode per week or we're not going to get all of them at once. I feel it hasn't been the model.
Because it's Thanksgiving.
Right. And so I think it's a good way for people to check out the show and then decide if they want to be invested or not. Yeah. I watched the first 2. I'm definitely invested. It starts out with Kate Bishop. She's a kid during Avengers 1, the invasion. Mm-hmm. And so when the episode started, I had already done a little bit of background on the character. Her parents are rich. They live in this penthouse in New York. And so my thought was, okay, like, you're New York penthouse rich. Why do I care? Like, boohoo, your life must be so hard. And then quickly the episode shows, oh, the invasion's happening right now. And so Kate Bishop has this trauma of, spoilers, her dad dies, her home gets destroyed, and she witnesses a battle. And she's, I don't know, like 10 years old maybe.
Okay, so she does have a dark backstory. The complete opposite of what I said about 5 minutes ago.
In the show, at least, yeah.
Okay.
And so, but her response to all this is, she tells her mom, I need a bow. She sees Hawkeye fighting during the invasion, and she's inspired by that. And so her response to all these terrible things isn't, my life sucks, I'm going to be sad. It's, life is scary, I want to be prepared. So she trains in archery and martial arts and stuff like that. Try to make herself better able to handle different situations. Which, if you're familiar with the Enneagram, I was wondering if she's a 6. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that at all.
I am, yeah.
That's the loyalist,
a little bit.
The person who like wants to be prepared and is always kind of thinking worst case scenario.
Yeah,
I'm a 6, so I'm familiar with it. That's why I had that thought.
I'm a 2 and a 4, so I don't. Yeah, I think I'm a 6 is new.
Okay, 7.
Yeah.
And then we get a time hop to where Clint Barton, Hawkeye, is watching an Avengers musical. And it's as ridiculous as you would expect it to be. And that's the whole point. And he's clearly not comfortable watching the musical, but also having people recognize him, which makes sense. He's a soldier. He was working for a spy agency. Like, he's not used to being...
When he left, he like went to the woods. He was like living in the forest. Yeah.
Right. And he's obviously still hurting from Black Widow's death. And in the comics, their history is a lot more nuanced and fleshed out. They did a pretty good job in the MCU movies, but in the comics, you really see that as well. Especially
in Black Widow too. I felt like they did some fleshing out of that character they reference him a good amount of times.
So. Yeah, Hawkeye's first appearance actually is like right around, like, him and Black Widow kind of met up during his first appearance around that time. He started out as a criminal, accidentally. But yeah, so he's watching this musical, and it seems like he definitely has some PTSD, as well as he now has a hearing aid, which is something we see in the comics, where he loses his hearing and learns sign language.
Oh, that's cool. I like that they're incorporating that in.
Right. And I had long hoped that we would get to see this in the MCU, just to have that kind of representation.
Yeah, no, I think that's really really important, and it's like cool. It's nice to see it outside of just a quiet place, outside of like a horror film.
Right. And the other thing, they kind of explain it later on in a funny way, where Kate Bishop asks him, like, why do you have a hearing aid? What happened? And you see a montage of all these different explosions that Hawkeye was in. And he's like, I don't know, it's hard to keep track. So basically, too many explosions wrecked one of his ears, at least. The other cool thing is, we were talking about Echo last week, and in the comics, as far as I know, she is a deaf Native American street fighter. And I'm not going to spoil what her role is, or what it appears to be in the series, but I do think there will be a connection between Hawkeye having lost his hearing partially to Echo.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds great. Like, I really want to actually check out this series.
We'll see. I think I will reserve. I'm the type of person who I need to see the whole season first before I make any judgment. So I will watch the season. I'll make my judgment afterwards.
It's definitely fun. The dynamic between Clint and Kate is pretty good. It's very much like youthful exuberance paired with like grizzled experience. And it's different from the comic, because in the comic she's pretty adept. She knows what's up, whereas in the series she's a college girl. She's like 22, kind of knows what she's doing, but not really. There's also a really funny bit in episode 2 with LARPing.
I heard about this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which,
well, I
see it, I think it's hilarious.
I just think of the movie Role Models. That's
right.
Oh man,
first thing I thought of.
Well, I think the show is touching on what Alex said is the pull to the show, that it's just lighthearted.
Right.
It's not trying to be Zack Snyder. So
which I think it has its place. We're in the holiday season. Bring that on. My favorite line from episode 2 was when Hawkeye is at that LARPing location. He's kind of looking around, thinks to himself, "I fought Thanos." And in regard to where he's like, "I fought Thanos, and now I'm here in the middle of a park with a bunch of LARPers." Going back, back to Echo though, I forgot to mention this. In the comics, she's trained by Kingpin, which there's also speculation that they will bring Vincent.
They need to.
I don't know how to say the guy's name.
Gomer Pyle.
Yes, him. the Kingpin from Netflix, who was fantastic.
He was phenomenal as the Kingpin good on that show.
Yeah, he was terrifying. I love that.
He was so good.
So there's speculation that if Echo's in this, and in the comics she was trained by him, what if he shows up? How cool would that be?
That would be really cool.
That would be chef kiss. Yep.
And then going back real quick, I mentioned Fraction and Aha. Like I said, the colors of the series, especially promotional stuff, is very reminiscent of their run. Mm-hmm. You have this gang called the Tracksuit Mafia.
Tracksuit Mafia.
Like these Eastern European guys that say "bro," like "Hey, bro, be careful, bro."
Which in Loki, by the way, they were foreshadowed in Loki.
Really?
One of the Tracksuit Mafia, or one of the Tracksuit Mafias in the what's that place that they were all in Loki?
Time Variant Authority, or whatever.
Yes, I want to call it Time Jail.
Yeah.
Yes, in the Time Jail, there in the background. I'll maybe we can post it on any of the social medias. But there's one of the members of the Tracksuit Mafia in the background. Obviously they're wearing tracksuits, and people had theorized that we would see them in some form. So,
well, it's funny you mentioned that, because Teenage Loki was also part of the Young Avengers at one point. So I do wonder if we'll see that character again too.
Oh, that's
totally forgot about that until you mentioned.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I hope so. Though.
I looked it up. I think, by the way, it was Time Prison. Does that sound right?
No, it's the
Time Variance Authority.
Time. Yeah.
Time. Oh yeah. Here we go. I see.
Thank you. Time Variance. Yes. Thank you.
The Time Variance Authority.
Yes. That I call it Time Jail, but yeah, that's what it is.
I was like, I haven't seen Loki, and I'm even like, from an outsider, I'm like, Time Jail sounds too much like Monopoly to me. I'm like, you should
definitely watch Loki.
Loki's cool.
If anything, just to watch what's his name, Jonathan Majors.
Yeah, I love Loki.
Yeah, I think he was probably the best part of the show.
So yeah, no, it would be cool if they incorporate that later in the line with Young Avengers. If we see Wilson Fisk in this, another character we see is the Pizza Dog, who we see in the comics. And then Grills and Jack, which to you guys probably doesn't mean anything, but
nope.
To those of you listening who have either read the comics or seen these episodes, you'll know that there is a connection there. And having listened to Verno on the Cerebros talking about this, and then also I was watching a video over at Variant on YouTube. Watching that stuff, listening to that, and then watching the series, it makes me really want to read the Fraction and Aha run. And going on to that, I want to talk about my pull list, unless there's anything else you guys have.
Just Hawkeye. Really quick to throw in on Hawkeye. I didn't watch the 2 episodes, but I did start the first issue of the comic series on Kate Bishop. The one that just came out this week.
Yeah.
The build-up was really slow. I feel like they did a decent job of just like jumping me into Kate Bishop, and like I had a pretty solid understanding of like who she is without needing to like dig way into her origin story. But it looks like it's setting up to like a Clue, like murder mystery type comic, which I think has a lot of potential, because I got the vibes of like Clue and Scooby-Doo. But I haven't really cared for many of the characters in it so far, but I'd like to keep up with that maybe on the next episode whenever the next issue's out.
For
But that's
sure.
definitely something I would recommend at least looking at if you're a fan of Hawkeye in general.
And what would be really cool to do is when the series is all said and done, to compare that with the current Kate Bishop run and then the Fraction and Aha run as well. I think it'd be cool to look at those.
Yeah.
If people want to hear that, that's something we can look
Yeah,
into.
that'd be great. Josh, what's on your pull list this week?
Right. Real quick though, my LCS, I went to 2 in the area, Beyond Tomorrow in Palatine, and then Gmart in Logan Square. Neither of them had that Kate Bishop comic, so I'm gonna see if I can snag that this week.
Yeah, I had Variant 1. I had like the variant cover as well, but they said that 90% of their Marvel comics did not come in this week, and Kate Bishop was one of the only ones that arrived at my comic store, which is Pulp Fiction Comics in Culver City for anyone who lives in Los Angeles.
Nice. Yeah, so for my pull list for this week, I have with Marvel, X-Men Trial of Magneto number 5, Phoenix Song Echo number 2, which is Echo that we see is going to be in this Kate Bishop series, as well as, like I said, has the Phoenix Force. The other thing I'm pulling is Wastelanders Wolverine, which is pretty cool if you've seen the movie Logan. That's based very loosely off of Old Man Logan.
My favorite, next to Shang-Chi, that's my favorite Marvel movie.
Logan is chef's kiss. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
A1.
Yeah. I loved Logan. I haven't seen it in years. So I'd like to rewatch it.
But yes. I low-key kind of hope that they bring, what was the girl? X-23?
X-23. Oh, she was so good.
I hope they bring that actress into the MCU.
And then going on to Image Comics, I'm pulling The Me You Love in the Dark number 5, which chef's kiss to this story. The artwork and the story are both fantastic. This is the last issue, and it comes out in trade in the spring of 2022. Okay. So when that happens, maybe we can talk about it. If you're reading it, let us know what you think. If you're not, if you're into indie books at all, I highly recommend checking this one out.
That's me, 100%.
Yeah, actually, Alex, I was thinking about that. You would probably love this series. It's a really nice, refreshing break from the superhero genre, and then the artwork and the character work is really fun too.
Can you repeat the name one more time?
The Me You Love in the Dark.
Me You Love in the Dark.
Yeah, that's by Image. And then
I'm a diehard fan of.
Yeah, I'm a huge Image fan as well, so I'm excited to finish the series.
Is Image a publisher?
Yes.
Yeah, they've done the biggest issues they've done is the series Saga by Brian Vaughan.
I actually have some of those.
Yeah, so I feel like that skyrocketed Image into like
that's one of the actually very few comic books I have. Yeah.
Yeah. They also did East of West, AJ, which I know you're a big fan of.
Well, I was a big fan. Whenever we talk about that, I'm going to talk about how the debauchery of that ending, and everyone a part of that should be ashamed. But that's another day.
Yeah, no, I would love to talk about it too. If you're listening, you've read that, let us know what you think, because I actually didn't mind how it ended. But
no way, are you serious?
We'll have to get into that later.
No spoilers right now, because that's the next series.
No spoilers. But when I finished it, I'm like, wait a minute, was that the end? I'm like, wait, hold on. And I went back, and I'm like, wait, this is over. I was like, nah, dude, this can't be. It was crazy.
Yeah, we'll have to hit on that in a future episode.
We definitely will, yeah.
Going over to DC, I'm pulling Gotham City Villains, which one of the writers is Danny DeVito.
Wow.
What?
Yes.
That's kind of cool, though. He probably loves.
Great.
It's a one-shot, and it's just going to be about Batman's Rogues Gallery, and Penguin obviously is one of the major ones.
Okay, I love that. I absolutely.
Having played the Penguin, he probably either was already into those comic books, or he probably has insight that a lot of people may not have. So
right. So I'm excited.
It's got to have some Danny DeVito humor too, right?
I hope so.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm also pulling Justice League Dark Annual, Justice League Incarnate number 1, Robin Annual, Static Season 1 number 5, Wonder Girl number 5, Wonder Woman Historia, The Amazons, Batman Annual, Batman the Detective #6, and then Fear State Omega. Which, Alex, I think you have some Fear State for us in just a second.
I'm so excited for that.
Right. With that, that's my end of my pull list. If you're listening, you have a pull list. Let us know what you are pulling. What should we be checking out? And then also, if any of what I have listed is interesting to you. Let's hear from Alex. We have that Fear State connection.
Yeah, actually, going off a pull list first, because I was one of the few people I didn't really understand what a pull list was. I don't know if this is at every comic shop, but at my comic store, if you do a pull list, they give you a 15% discount off of new releases.
Nice.
So I feel like that's just something worth looking at, because like the entire time you could have been paying full price for an issue that you could have just like emailed or I don't know. Every comic store does a pull list a little differently, but just like an easy way to save a little bit of money and also not be overwhelmed when you walk into a store. But yeah, going off of Fear State, I picked up an issue kind of random called Batman Secret Files Fear State, but it's for this character called the Gardener. I don't know if Josh
is this
or
what
AJ.
We talked about last week. We talked about it. Josh mentioned it last week, right?
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit, but that was in I can't remember. Was it a different issue you were bringing up?
So she's a character in the Fear State event that DC is doing with Batman right now. And the Secret Files, there are these one shots that give you background on the new characters who have been introduced in this series.
Which is one reason why I picked it up. I had no idea who the Gardener was. I am not caught up on that series, and I just was kind of already overwhelmed with some other issues I was trying to keep up with. So I thought this would be like a cool way to jump in, and like if I didn't like the character, then I would just know if it was worth it or not to jump into. But for me, I thought this issue was beautiful. Like the art direction was like everything just looked like a painting, like lots and lots of beautiful, vibrant colors of green and red. Um, Batman like has like oranges and blues, and like he looks almost like a mural in a sense. Like I just feel like the art direction was very different than a lot of issues I read, and that was very intriguing. The Gardener, it's written by James Tinian IV, and the artist is Christian Ward, who I wanted to give a shout out to just because, again, like the art direction was beautiful. I don't know if you guys can see the cover here,
but that looks awesome.
I just thought it looked really cool, and like that kind of got my attention. But I thought it was a beautiful little bit of spoilers, but I'm gonna try to like not spoil too much of it. I thought it was a beautiful love story filled with romance, betrayal, and an in-depth look into a criminal that isn't so black and white. Like the reason I say that is like, or the reason I like that is I just feel like I get kind of sick of these like villain type characters that are very, very, very obviously one-sided, and I feel like for someone like the Gardener, um, or Dr. Bella Garten is her name. I feel like she's kind of in the middle. Like some of the things she does might be a little messed up, but I feel like her reasonings are kind of cool. Like she essentially, from what I can recall, hunts down companies and people who are destroying the planet. But she uses like these plant morphed bloodhounds. And she like mainly goes after like people who are like ruining the environment. And I feel like it's very like progressive and up to date with like current global warming issues, but without like being like too preachy on global warming.
That's so interesting too, because it's almost like the antithesis direction that Josh talked about last week with the Son of Superman comic.
Right.
That's kind of like the same thing where like Son of Superman, his focus is more on direct impacts in terms of like the environment and stuff like that. So it's interesting to see DC also roll out a villain with that same perspective.
Yeah, I think I have a feeling DC is going to be tying in more of this, but it is kind of cool to see like these universes of like the villains and heroes still fighting for their causes for like almost the same issues in a way.
Yeah, just two different ways to go about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's cool is again, I didn't know anything about the Gardener, but she basically meets Poison Ivy Pamela Isley through a graduate program, which was for experimental botany, and it's ran by this character Jason Woodrue, and like Jason is like he just looks like the cool like suave professor. I don't know if anyone's ever seen like the show Easy. Does that ring a bell with either of you?
I have not seen it.
Vaguely.
Easy, yeah. So that was like I don't know. It's like Easy has like a professor in that too. That like all these basically college age girls are like constantly going to like his book clubs and then like going out and getting drinks with him after and like.
So that almost sounds like the new Netflix show, The Chair. There's a character
I haven't seen
show.
That.
Yeah, there's a character on the show that very similar, just like the cool professor. Everyone, yeah.
So it's definitely like a type of character you can understand why people would look up to them. They have a lot of enthusiasm. They're very confident. They have a like a live life loud and like I'm saving the world type of vibe. But you realize like the only way that they can save or the only reason they can really save things is if you like go in their direction. And it's cool seeing like Poison Ivy's character kind of get obsessed with this Jason character, and then the gardener actually met her through that program, and they start a relationship. So there's like a lot of romance with them, but like it kind of goes through like the whole reason why their relationship and reasonings for what they want to do for protecting the planet fall apart. And the gardener as a villain goes to Batman seeking help, and like the story just like kind of explains like the whole past with Poison Ivy, and then like leads up to like the main events that happen in here. And like I thought it was really cool. I really hope that DC incorporates more of her. But yeah, that from what Josh was saying, this ties directly into the Batman Omega series, which I believe launches next week, right?
It ties it. So it's Batman Fear State Omega. It's the final issue related to the Fear State event.
Interesting.
Oh, it's a final issue. I thought it was a start over of a new series.
No, it'll be the end because there's Fear State Alpha, which is like a prologue to Fear State, and then Fear State Omega will be the epilogue, I guess you could say.
Okay, so see that's where comics can already get kind of confusing with me. Is I thought it was.
Dude, it is confusing. Yeah,
I thought it was tying into a new thing, which it kind of is, but it's also closing a previous series.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about Fear State when it comes to trade. It's a very like controversial run because it was so hyped up, and it kind of didn't do a whole lot.
Live up to the hype, yeah.
But yeah, the issue you're talking about right now, though, the Secret File Gardener, super good.
Yeah, I bought another issue from Fear State, which maybe we can talk about later. But yeah, the Gardener, if you're new to Batman, you're new to Ivy, and you just like want a cool standalone like female villain, like this issue alone is just worth reading. I feel like it closes this story well enough that you could read this without jumping into the rest of the series, and like you wouldn't be confused. Yeah, these are the perfect type of comics I recommend for anyone who like just doesn't have the time to read a lot. But yeah, going off of that, like I don't know if did either of you guys read it?
Yeah, I read it.
No.
Yeah, Josh, you liked it?
I thought it was phenomenal. I think you have cover A. I think I pulled cover B.
Yeah, I was looking between those, and I finally decided on or it's the other way around. I have cover A and seeing it.
Yeah, I thought it was like you were saying, it's its own self-contained story, which makes it so accessible to both a casual or an avid comic reader. Mm-hmm. And on both sides of that, you're getting introduced to this new character. I believe Tynion came up with her, but I'm not sure.
Oh, is it Tynion? I'm pretty sure I said Tynion. So
I've heard it said both ways. I'm sure he's heard it said both ways too.
Yeah. I tried to look it up and I couldn't find how to like pronounce his name.
So, yeah.
If you're listening, you know the correct pronunciation, let us know.
Yeah, please.
Tynion, if you're listening, tell us too. If you want to sponsor us, that'd be cool. But no, going back to the issue, the art was beautiful, the story was well laid out, it flowed well, pacing was good. It was one issue, but it was a full story. And if you are reading Fear State, it got me more excited to continue reading, just because I'm getting to see the side of a character that I didn't know too much about previously. And I think the Gardener and Poison Ivy, their characters are very similar, but also very distinct. And I don't want to spoil anything from the Fear State run, but maybe we can talk more about those similarities and differences in the future.
Yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out. As for what I'm pulling next week, I'm looking at Nightwing issue 1. I'm also looking at the Batman Omega issue that Josh was talking about. And then I'm looking at Best of Shredder issue 1, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, whoa.
It's actually a bunch of stories. It says it's basically just like the best of stories that have involved Shredder since, I believe, the 90s. And I haven't caught up on a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic in a long time. It's published by IDW. So I'm kind of excited just because I feel like that'll be like a cool way to jump into the series without like having to read a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, outside of that, I'm catching up on one manga called Ruko Volume 2. If you haven't read Ruko, it's pretty much just like a badass girl who rides a motorcycle and shoots guns and has swords and reminds me a lot of Kill Bill. So
that's cool.
Which is my second favorite Quentin Tarantino movie.
Yeah, so
Volume 1 and 2. Yeah.
Another cool female-led kind of anti-hero character, which I would recommend. Again, that's a Ruko.
I'm here for that. I'm gonna look that
it's
up
cool.
later.
AJ, what do you gotta?
Yeah. Well, today? I watched a movie. It was called The Harder They Fall.
Oh, okay.
It was on Netflix. If you want to watch it, the movie, it's directed by James Samuel. He's this British writer, songwriter, singer, I believe. I gotta be honest with you guys. I did not enjoy this movie at all.
I was looking forward to this.
I did not enjoy this movie. I could probably sit here for a whole nother hour and explain everything I didn't like about it. I will. I'll start with the nice things. I thought the movie was shot beautifully. I thought the cinematography was really, really good. For those who don't know, this is a film loosely based on real American folklore, Black cowboys in particular. This film essentially takes those characters and puts them in this Quentin Tarantino-esque style of a film. The film is about this boy who witnesses the death of his parents and is then branded by this killer. Spends his entire life then on a revenge tour for all the people responsible for his parents' death. And the film was about that conflict between the main character, Nat Love, and the villain played by one of my favorite actors, Idris Elba. I believe the villain's name was Rufus Buck.
So that's why I'm excited, because I love everything he touches.
Idris Elba can play a villain like no one else can. If you've watched The Wire, you've seen Idris Elba as probably his best as Stringer Bell. He did a great job. And that's the other thing I loved about this movie. I thought the performances overall were really, really good. Jonathan Majors is coming out of left field as probably one of my new favorite actors. He did a really good job in this film. Zazie Beetz, I know her from Atlanta, and I think she was in Deadpool.
Yeah, she was.
Deadpool 2. I think she played Domino.
Yeah,
I think she played Domino in Deadpool.
She was great in that.
Yeah, she's a phenomenal. I mean, this movie had a lot of actors and actresses who I know from Keith Langfield, who was in. He's also in Atlanta. I know him from Atlanta. I know he's also in that movie. I think it's called "I'm Sorry to Bother You."
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's a great actor. So there are a lot of. I mean, there's a lot of great Black actors in this film, and they all do their job really, really, really well. I just didn't feel the story matched the intensity of the cinematography and the acting. The story was tremendously lackluster. Something for me is that if your movie is going to be longer than 2 hours, I gotta forget that I'm watching a 2-hour movie. Once I start to feel that period of a film where there's a big lull in the movie, then I start to get disinterested. And unfortunately, what this director does that so many modern directors do, and it drives me crazy, is that they treat the audience like they're stupid.
That
and it's
is a
something
pet
to
peeve of
me.
mine.
Yeah. So as an example, as I mentioned before, the main character Nat Love, he watches his family get murdered by Idris Elba's character Rufus Buck. So in the future, the film takes place probably like 15, 20 years in the future. In the future, when there's supposed to be this real climactic scene, right, where Nat has finally is finally going to confront Rufus. It's first of all, I felt that whole interaction just felt really flat. There was no anticipation to it, and the reasoning that Idris Elba says he A, kept him alive, and B, branded him, it really makes no sense. He basically says, so I know who you are when you find me. But that makes no sense. You mean to tell me you knew this person was going to go on a revenge path? What if they did it? What if they died? Like that and then he uses Nat Love to further his plot, and he basically blackmails him into doing whatever he needs him to do from that point in the movie going forward. And it really doesn't make any sense. It's like, if your whole life was dedicated to seeing this person die, whether you lived or died, you would never just be like, all right, I'll do what you asked me to do, no matter what the circumstance. And that's kind of the depth that I felt like the movie lacked. It was very, I would honestly call it cookie cutter, in my personal opinion. It almost felt like the director watched a Quentin Tarantino film and said, wow, I can do the same thing, but didn't put any of the effort that Quentin Tarantino puts into the dialogue. And I felt like that's where it felt really short. This is where I felt the movie fell short in terms of how I engaged with it. I knew the ending basically from like the first scene. I guessed the ending from the very first scene. And what's frustrating for me is that now I'm watching me being right, and I hate that. I hate that in movies. If I'm gonna be right about something, at least surprise me and how I can see that. You shouldn't telegraph it as easily as that movie did. So if you guys do choose to watch it, don't be afraid to skip. I think for me, one of the most insulting scenes is Idris Elba's character Rufus. He tells Nat that in order to get his woman back, he needs to return the money that Nat stole from him with interest. So in order to get that interest, he has to rob a white bank. And so they go to a white town, and the entire town is white. Like when I say the entire town is white, I mean like literally the cinematographer. It's again shot beautifully. It looks incredible, right? It's like this. The sand is white. The buildings are white. Everything is white. But then the director somebody made this choice to put the name of the town, and then underneath it's a white people town. I'm just like, well, yes, obviously. That is already telegraphed by everything in the town. Like, you don't have to tell me that. Like,
wait, they actually literally wrote that.
They actually
wrote it. Like, that's an example when I say, well, I don't appreciate when a director treats me, the audience, the audience, as somebody who cannot put two and two together. You know what I mean? That's for me personally. That's part of the goal of a cinematographer, right? They are trying to use their artistic lens, their artistic eye, to draw these comparisons with each other, to each other. I think a really good scene, for example, and this is where the movie for me is a little frustrating. Is there's a character where there's a moment where Zazie Beetz, her name is Mary Fields. She kind of runs I think it's called a Bordeaux, right? That's kind of like old timey strip clubs, right? So she runs one in her town, and she has to now go into Rufus's town, and that's where Rufus is hanging out in their version of like a Bordeaux or whatever. And so the difference between hers and his is so much different, right? His is more elegant. It's more overwhelming. It's more, there is this sense. I don't want to give it away in case everyone does want to watch it, but there's this almost like sense of like danger, but you're drawn into it. And I think that what that's supposed to show is that her, bar / Bordeaux, whatever. It was very inviting, right? They really, there was a much safer sense. Literally, there was a safer sense in that area than when they go to Rufus's town. And I just felt like, okay, that's an example where the cinematographer, he's really doing some work, right? But then it's undercut by just the reason she's there makes no sense. I mean, her plan is literally, let me go there and find out what's going on. And Nat's character is like, but they know what you look like. She's like, well, someone's got to do it. I'm like, that's not a reason. What? That makes no sense.
Like
and then she immediately gets captured. I'm just like,
what
was
the
plan?
That coming.
Well, yeah, that's my point. Like, that makes no sense. I just don't like. I personally, on a personal level, I just don't enjoy films where characters are making ill-informed decisions based on information we already have. It's like, why would you either don't put the dialogue that they know what your face looks like and stuff like, don't put that in the movie then. Like, I just felt like that was an example of like, if you didn't include that dialogue, then that, when she does get captured, that makes you respect the intellect of Rufus's character, that he's able to identify somebody that we, the audience, thinks they don't know. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, like that's just an example of like one of the many things. I could go on about this movie for an hour. Guys, I gotta give it. I was gonna give it 2 thumbs down, but the acting and the cinematography, especially at the end, where Jonathan Major's character has this last confrontation with Rufus, with Idris Elba's character, Rufus Buck. The acting is so potent. And the cinematography, I felt, was really good. That's the only thing preventing me from giving it 2 thumbs down. I got to give it 1 thumbs down. But if it wasn't for those 2 components, I would have to give it a good 2 thumbs down.
Oh, man.
It's just,
it's interesting to me how this director was, how he started with his first film being a almost 2.5 hour Western. When I'm like looking and like, it's mainly been singer, songwriter, music producer. He worked on a Jay-Z short film, and then like he's the brother of Seal, which I did not know.
Yeah.
It's bizarre to me. Like, I feel like it's such a big stretch to be like, all right, my first film is going to be this huge
100%
Western with a big cast,
big budget Western. Again, I cannot stress this enough. It is one of the more poor imitations of a Quentin Tarantino movie, because there are these scenes, something that Quentin Tarantino does, and it's something that I absolutely love about his movies, is that I don't know if there's anyone better at building tension than Quentin Tarantino in a film. You can think of any Quentin Tarantino movie. Let's take Reservoir Dogs, for example, right? And the whole movie is building up to tension to that last scene, which is insane because the majority of the movie takes place after the conflict of,
and you have no idea what's happening,
and you have no idea what's going on, and each scene in that movie is it's like a train. It's like building and building, and it's funny because there's very little like conflict, like action, gunfight, that kind of stuff. It's all just dialogue. But that's how good of a director and writer Quentin Tarantino is, right?
The dialogue needs to be important for the plot.
The dialogue is
interesting.
It's vital. Yes, you can. Have you guys seen The Hateful Eight?
Yes,
That's one of the few I haven't seen of his.
I highly recommend watching it. That's another example of the dialogue in that movie is used like a train. It's literally driving the conflict. And so when you get to those last scenes, when not to give it away, but the last scenes of the movie, you're just so engaged in what's going on, right? This is one of the reasons why Quentin Tarantino. I mean, even what was the last Quentin Tarantino movie he did with Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad
Once
Pitt?
Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Yeah, even that movie, while I didn't feel like that was like the strongest in terms of dialogue, but a lot of what's going on in the movie is building throughout the movie. I just don't feel like you have that here. I feel like you have the pacing is bizarre, and then the dialogue is thrown in there. So if you're an aspiring actor, and you're looking for like dialogue to take to auditions, like, hey, pick any from this movie, right? There's a lot in there, and you could definitely take them from really, really talented actors, but they just don't fit. They just don't fit in what the movie's trying to do. It's trying to be an edgier Quentin Tarantino movie. I just felt like it fell short. I just felt like it fell short of it.
Can't all be winners.
So one thumbs down from AJ.
One thumbs down. Right. Yeah, one thumbs down. But whoever that cinematographer is in that movie, I think they saved it. I also didn't love the score as well. It was cool that they used hip hop in like they kind of merge like a lot of hip hop and almost like Western themes. That was cool, but I just never felt like it married well with what was going on the screen at the time. If that makes any sense. At least not all the time. So yeah, you guys can skip it.
All right. I don't like Westerns anyway, so I probably won't watch it.
You guys can skip it. If you want to watch a better Western film that's edgy, I highly recommend The Hateful Eight. I highly recommend The Hateful Eight. Yeah,
that is very good. I like Tarantino is just great.
Yeah, he's a great director, and one of the reasons why I love The Hateful Eight, honestly, is because Samuel L. Jackson's character in that movie might be my favorite Quentin Tarantino Samuel L. Jackson. I mean, he is really, really, really good in that movie, and that's saying a lot. So, since he's in, he's also in Pulp Fiction. He's in Jackie Brown. He's in Django. So yeah, that says a lot.
Nice. Maybe we'll have to hit one of those up on a future episode.
Yeah,
we'll just do a whole Tarantino episode.
Well, we can, because I don't know if you guys know this, but technically speaking, every Quentin Tarantino movie takes place in the same universe.
I did know that. Yep.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. That's perfect.
So yeah, so every Quentin Tarantino movie takes place. There are threads that he leaves in each movie he's even admitted himself that the characters are all there. They're all,
they're all connected in some way.
They're all connected. Yeah, they're all connected in some way. So I always thought that was kind of cool.
We could, yeah. There's a Django comic book too. So
is there really?
Yeah,
that's cool.
Now, was Django a comic book first, or
I don't think so. I think it came out afterwards.
You don't think so? Afterwards, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, I'll pick it up. We can talk about it sometime.
Yeah, so we definitely should, because I love Quentin Tarantino. I hope he's not really done making movies.
Yeah. All right, I think that's it, guys. Right?
Yeah.
I also want to talk. No, I'm joking.
All right. Well, that's it for the show for this episode. Special shout out to all the men and women on the USS Carl Vinson. Thank you all for your sacrifice, especially during this holiday season, as well as everyone else in the armed services. And my brother's on the Vinson right now, so shout out to Carlos and everyone else out there keeping us safe.
Salute you, Carlos, and all the brave men and women.
And if you liked this episode, if you like what you heard, you can subscribe so you can stay up to date on all of our content. For those of you on YouTube, gently press that like button. If you didn't like the episode, you go ahead and smash the dislike button. Drop us a comment below. If you're on another platform that allows that, drop us a comment as well. But obviously not you, Spotify.
Come on,
give us
Spotify.
a rating. Tell us what we did right. What did we get wrong? You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Bandwagon Fan Pod, as well as on Facebook and YouTube at The Bandwagon Fan. You can find episodes wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you in the next one.